Hey guys, welcome back to Combustion Junction, and in this one, hopefully, fingers crossed, it's gonna run. As we left off in the last episode, I kind of came to a standstill with the starter clutch needing new bits and springs and pieces and stuff. Stuart went to bed last night, was laying in bed last night, and realized, you moron, you have a kickstart. It just didn't occur to me to just start kicking. So we're gonna continue on with the will it's run today, and hopefully it runs. Like I said in the last part, carbs are brand new. Never seen fuel since they've been rebuilt, have been shelved, were preserved. Should be, fingers crossed, at least good enough to let the bike run. I'm gonna try and avoid starter fluid or shooting gas down the spark plug holes. I'm just gonna gas it up and kind of see what happens, because I'd like to hear it idle for a little bit. I've got to get throttle cables, at least one on the carb, so that I have a little bit of control over when I'm kicking it. Choke, there is no cable, it's just right on the carb, so that's easy. I've got to get gas lines hooked up to some temporary tank, and I think the final part of that is getting some sort of exhaust on. And when I get there, I'll show you what I got right now to sort of help the noise a little bit. So let's start taking some of this stuff off the list. Wasn't getting spark at all. Was troubleshooting once again the continuity of the points and just had to do a little bit of adjustment. If you look at this light now, this is looking for the ground of the points. That I wasn't getting before when I started this. So now I should be getting a spark on here. Yep. I'm not sure if you can see that or not. And that's actually a really nice spark. Okay. Okay, so just to give you the update, I've changed the handlebars, and the main reason for changing the handlebars, these are indeed the handlebars I am going to use on the bike, and I needed to change them first because the original end where the throttle slider is quite rusty, and it was actually being very difficult to get this on, and I wanted to get this on so I had a little bit of throttle control while I was trying to get the bike started. The cables, I had ordered brand new cables. The return cable doesn't seem to work. It's considerably shorter, like 4 to 6 inches too short on the actual cable length compared to this one, which was the first thing I found strange because it's really only about an inch in difference at the carbs. The other thing is that the inner cable, there just wasn't enough. Once this one was in place, and this is definitely the main pull cable, once all this was set up and in place, there wasn't enough inner cable to get around the mechanism in the carb and also fit this. Like, it was inches too short. So I pulled it off. This one is really nice, has the nice proper little bit of play on it. It has a good return. So I'm just going with the single cable setup for now, and I will write the company that I ordered, because I ordered it as a kit for this specific model. So I will see if I got sent the wrong one and see if I can't get that rectified, but that's what I'm going to use for the time being. These controls are actually not original to the bike. They came with the 450 motor that I bought for the CM400 Cafe Racer project. And there's a couple reasons why I'm gonna go with these as opposed to the original controls. The starter button on the original controls is gone, and it's not just the button, but it's some of the connections in behind and everything are missing or broken or gone. And I had this one, and it's just a little bit like newer feeling and more solid, so I decided to go with that instead. It also moves my front brake switch up here as opposed to a intermediate connection here within the brake line itself, so I can put a more modern brake reservoir on and just have a solid line going down to the caliper once I get it. The one downside of this is that this engine stop switch is wired, I believe is wired to cut and add ground, whereas the original one that came with the bike was designed to pass power to the coil. So on the original one, in the run position, it was actually closing a contact and sending 12 volts down to power the coil, and then so when you hit the kill switch, it just killed that power. On this one, it in its on position, I believe the contacts are open, and when you hit the off, it grounds the coil out, I believe. So if I were to wire that in right now, it would actually be opposite. Off would be on and on would be off. Right now, none of this part is wired in. I still have the original switch, and you can see that's some of the starter button stuff. It does have the light switch on it. I'll get into the electronics later because I'm going to do some mods, but I think I'm actually going to move that light switch to the headlight, like a nice old school toggle, just to keep the wiring intact and not having to mess with anything too much. This side I don't really need right now, just because they're a matched pair. I thought I would go with this, and it just has a nicer feeling setup, and the high beams up here as opposed to over here. It would be a nice matched setup. The downside of this one is that someone had actually cut off the clutch lever mounting bracket. They were using it for something else, so I will have to add an aftermarket lever bracket, which isn't a big deal, and then I'll just clean this up a little bit more. I just threw it on just because I wanted to see what it looked like. Anyway, the whole point of that was new bars, so this rotated smoothly, and then putting this guy on so that I would have some sort of throttle control while trying to kick the bike. So the points seem to be working okay now. I'm pretty sure the wire that comes out of the bottom has a little bit of a frayed jacket on it, and I think when I put the cover on, it's grounding out. So I'm gonna leave the cover off for now. I may go electronic, I'm not sure. But right now, they seem to be working enough to get a spark, which is all I need, and maybe I'll just reshield the cables later or use the set from the other bike. My fuel line going to the carbs, I just have it coming up here. I have to cut this. I'm gonna put a little funnel on in here so I can trickle the gas in, fill up the carbs enough to get it going. So the only other thing I need to get going on it before I try and kick it over is some sort of exhaust. So let me show you what I have for this. Okay, so this is as much of the exhaust that I got with the original bike. That's not entirely going to help me for my purposes right now. The CB360 was the bike that came with the 2-in-1 pipes. Most of the reason why I decided to go and get this parts bike was for the exhaust. What I do have is most of the 2-in-1 setup. The muffler itself was pretty corroded, and the whole thing I think was starting to go, but there's enough here. I did salvage the collector. Every time I move this, just crap falls out of it. I do have the 2-in-1 collector, and this is just, I just ordered it because I could just fit it into the collector. It's not gonna be perfect, it's not gonna be well sealed. There's a lot of parts missing, but for me right now, I can get it on there. I know the brake lever completely gets in the way of this, so I'm gonna pop that off as well. But yeah, and maybe it'll end up being the final exhaust, or maybe not. But for now, I have it. Let's get it on, and hopefully we hear some noise. That was awesome. That was idle, no choke, little bit of drippy coming out of the overflow of the carbs. Kind of not surprising considering those floats have probably been sitting in the same position, and they probably just, hopefully they just needed to do their thing. But yeah! Little bit of valve flattering, could be a timing chain, could even be a timing chain tensioner thing. Let me know what you think of this exhaust. I was kind of there when I originally got the CJ. This was totally appealing to me, the 2-in-1 going down the side, and then just that sort of flat out the back kind of thing. I was, you know, with the Scrambler, it'd be nicer to do something more CL style with the pipes up high going down the other side. So let me know what you think, because the sound wasn't terrible. It's something I could live with. There's obviously leaks and there's all kinds of things that need to be addressed, but it's all kind of there and it's all paid for. Do comment, tell me what you think. I'm not gonna run it for too long because I don't want to mess anything up. Just, you know, the state of the starter and everything else kind of considers, and the fact that this bike sat for a long time, you know, who knows. But yay, yes. Okay, let's call it there. Let's call it on a high note. So next episode, I'm gonna mock up some of the frame stuff. I'm gonna get rid of the rest of this gobbledygook back here, get it cut off to probably about there, start to get all the other hooks and mounting points that we don't need anymore. Gonna get that off and just see what it looks like with the seat I have in mind. So anyway, guys, leave me a like, leave a comment, share the video, subscribe, and yeah, we will catch you really soon. Cheers.